Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here on the Nerd Party Network. I'm Lee Hutchison, and me and Dallas King make our way through the A24 filmography and our TV shows, and along the way we aim to bring you interviews with the talent involved. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Mike Keller, who plays Officer O'Callaghan in Sofia Coppola's On the Rocks. Mike takes us behind the scenes on shooting his unforgettable scene with Bill Murray, Rashida Jones, and that amazing red car, how he went from West Point to starring on stage and screen, and much, much more. Thanks to Mike for joining us for the first of several On the Rocks interviews we'll be bringing you over the next few months. Hope you too will enjoy this interview, and join us next week for our next interview with Rame's Madison Hine. Enjoy the show. Have you always been attracted to sort of a career in the creative industry?
I would say that I had early thoughts of it. Yeah. I sort of always was a kind of a class clown and a very talkative kid. So I always used to like to entertain my parents, and my sister and I would, play and come up with different scenarios and fun sketches and stuff. And then as I got into my teen years, I started playing football, American football, and I guess maybe I thought I was a little bit of a tough guy, and I started thinking, I don't want my father to have to pay for my school. In West Point, a cadet came to the school and gave a pretty good speech, and I thought, you know what, that's what I'll do. I'll go to West Point. That'll be a great education, and it won't come out of Dad's pocket. And so I went, and then I was there for 2 years before I realized more of what I was doing there was, I was getting by, and there was some parts of the soldiering life that I didn't mind. But once they started putting guns in my hand, I thought, yeah, this is not for me, And I remember I used to go to other cadets' rooms and just try to tell jokes and then do impressions and that kind of thing. And I just lost my heart for it. So I left, and I was waiting tables. I didn't know if I was going to go back to school right away or what I was going to do. And I was doing my same shtick at my tables. And this woman that was sitting in the dining hall there, I was waiting tables. She said, "You should be an actor." And I thought about it. And she says, "Call this number." This is in New Jersey, right around where Bruce Springsteen cut his teeth on the Jersey Shore. And she set me up with this director, and I auditioned, which I had never done before really, for her. And she gave me a part in this play, and it was in the basement of the Monmouth County Mall on like a 6-inch lift. And we did Miracle on 34th Street. And I played the little kid that swept up after Santa in the first act. And then something happened with a guy that was playing the judge at the judge, I think. And the director said, "Hey, could you play that part too in the second act?" So I got gray in my hair, and I did all this stuff, and I had a big cigar, and I played a second act part too, and I was hooked. So from there, I actually went into behind the scenes stuff because I still wasn't sure that I could make a life out of acting. So I said, "Well, I'll get in through the back door. I'll be a producer." So I was I started working for a guy named Richard Rubenstein, who when he was younger produced Dawn of the Dead in the mall with George Romero film with the zombies. And at the time he was producing a series for the Sci-Fi Channel called The Children of Dune, which was a follow-up to the Dune series on the Sci-Fi Channel. It was like a 3-part miniseries, and I became his production coordinator on that. And we were casting. You'll appreciate this being Scottish. They were casting, and there was only 4 of us in the executive producer's office. And the executive producer, Richard Rubenstein, said, "Here, look at these tapes and just show me the good guys." And we were looking for this Leto 2, the worm guy, this young guy, So I went through all the tapes, and I found one guy I really liked, and then the casting directors really liked him, and then it ended up Richard really liked him, and it ended up being James McAvoy's first American job. Mm-hmm. And that was cool. And I remember watching the dailies from that and watching James and just thinking, damn it, I really want to be in front of the camera, I think. And that week, I applied for the Actors Studio here in New York, and I got in.
For those whose sort of first encounter with you was obviously your work on The Rock, what have been some of the highlights of sort of your career predating that? You've been in sort of a range of films and TV shows and theatre, and I think a lot of people will probably have had a similar reaction to me when they were watching you and on The Rocks, going, "I recognise that guy from A, B, or C." What are some of the kind of highlights you'd recommend people would check out from your sort of back catalogue if they were like, "I want to have a Mike Keller evening"?
I want to have a Mike Keller evening. It'll be a short evening. I have one of the first jobs I did was with Kristen Wiig in Girl Most Likely. She and I met on the set of another film. I was an exaggerated background actor on that. It was a film called Revenge for Jolly by my friend Chad Harbald. And we had met. He was in NYU film school, and him and his buddies Dan Burke and Bobby Olson and Brian Gaynor formed this company called Last Pictures, and they did this short film called Block, and they had me audition for it. It was this deranged lunatic in a bodega here, and it was based on a true story. The girl that wrote it had been attacked by, or verbally attacked by, a guy in this bodega. So they had me audition for it, and I scared them all in the audition, and they gave it to me. And after that, everything that they made, they sort of started to put me in little roles here, little roles there. And they were doing this thing called Revenge for Jolly, and it was a lot of people. Kristen Wiig was in it, Garrett Dillahunt, Oscar Isaac, before he did the Coen Brothers movie that made him really famous. And so anyway, they said, "Listen, we have this part for you. We're going to sit you next to Kristen. She saw Block. She loved it, and she loved you in it. Just do with that information as you will." And I said, "Okay." So I sat there, and she's a movie star. I didn't want to bother her. Bridesmaids was in theaters at the time, and it was right in the middle of that summer when Bridesmaids was really taking off. And she was doing this film. It was her boyfriend at the time wrote it, I think, and I didn't want to bother her. So I just sat there, kind of whatever. And then my part ended up getting cut because the permits for the location that we were in got cut. So they were short on time. So I was basically just sitting there, and she and I started talking, and then she suddenly recognized me from the short. She was like, "Holy Christmas, you're the guy." And I said, "Oh yeah, And long story short, she ended up helping me. She got me an audition for this film she was doing next called Girl Most Likely, and Annette Bening was playing her mother. And I auditioned terribly. I thought I was awful in it. And in the audition, I came home and I threw a hissy fit. And but I ended up getting it. And she was just so wonderful to me. And she treated me like I'd been there forever. And it was really the first thing I'd ever done. So I would recommend seeing that, just because it was really the first movie that I'd done. And then after that, I started, like you're saying, I got the cop thing, so I just started playing cops all on every television show in New York, which there's plenty of those.
When did you sort of first hear about the opportunity for On the Rocks?
My manager sent me a breakdown and said, "Hey, that they're interested in you sending in a self-tape." And I was busy that day, I remember, and I looked at it kind of fast, and I didn't really said, "Oh, okay, it's a cop," another thing, And so I put it away. And then later on that evening, I really read the email, and I thought, wait a minute, and I started clicking around, and I thought, oh, this is Bill Murray. This is Sofia Coppola. This is serious, man. You got to. And then the more I thought about it, because, as actors, sometimes we're pretty self-deprecating, I thought, well, nothing ever good's going to happen for me. So, I'll just, I'll do it, but I'll do the audition, but I'm never going to get this. And I had a really tough weekend that weekend and at work, and I almost forgot to do the audition. I got a phone call at the audition was due noon on Monday. I got a phone call literally at 11:30 from my manager going, "Hey man, are you gonna get this in on time?" And I go, "Oh shoot!" And I had a buddy that was coming over, my friend Dante Palmenteri, great musician, actor. And he was coming over to rehearse something with me. And I said, "You got to come here 10 minutes early and help me with this self-tape." So we did. And we threw it together in one take. And he goes, "You want to look at it?" I said, No, just send it. And then I got this call back. And I thought, you gotta be kidding me. I said, oh, I'll go in. And it was with Sofia and the famous producer, Fred Ruse, who did, Apocalypse Now for Mr. Coppola and the Godfather series. So I did the audition. I was first of 4 guys that were called back. The last guy had a name. So I thought, well, we're just setting up the guy that has a name. I'm sure, it's not going to go to any of us. And I went in there and I did it, and I left. And like a week later, they called me and told me I had it. And I still didn't. I remember thinking, come on, stop. I'm not acting with the one guy that's probably responsible for me being here, like doing this since childhood. Because, if there's a Mount Rushmore of actors, or a holy trinity, if you want, Bill Murray was right up front. So, in fact, when I first started the thinking of becoming a producer, I started writing a lot, and I remember being a little envious of Sofia for writing such a great part for Bill in Lost in Translation, because I thought, oh man, somebody else made him a dramatic actor, and I wanted to be the person that did that, and well, luckily it's happening, and that's great and everything. And then here I am years later.
You mentioned obviously Coppola kind of stood out on that script. Were you a fan of sort of her previous work as well?
Oh God, yes. I mean, she's just, she's just, it's, I was watching On the Rocks last night, and I just started appreciating all the little things that I think a lot of the reviews missed in the film, were not just, Bill Murray's charm, but, what a woman like this is going through when she's suspicious of her husband cheating. I can't imagine having those. I know the pit, and when you find out like a girl's broken up with you or something, or she's cheating on you or whatever, and that pit in your stomach where you're not sure what to do and all that. I had that pit in my stomach the whole movie, and I think that it's so subtly done that it's almost overlooked, and I think that just speaks to her aptitude as a director.
What was your first day, or should I say night, like on set? What was that moment like for you?
Well, it was only one night, and I got there. It was a night shoot, but it was in the summer, so we weren't even able to start until pretty late because the sun didn't go down until about 8:30. But there's a lot of paperwork and costuming and makeup and stuff to get through. So I got there in the evening, and I saw Bill just outside my trailer, and immediately it became pretty real that I gotta say, I'm not easily starstruck. I've worked with a lot of stars, and I don't get nervous, but for some reason when I saw him, I was nervous, and I ran back to my trailer, and I called my parents, and I said, he's here, and it's real, it's happening, and they were like, all right, well, you can do it, and so I went back out, and I never went up to him. I just kind of let him do his thing. And, he's Bill Murray. So it's like everyone's coming to him, and he's going to them, and he's having fun, taking pictures with people. People on the street are coming up to him. And so I just, I waited up until all of a sudden we were in the middle of rehearsal, and it was dark out, and the lights were all set up, and I'm in my uniform, and they put me in the police car. And I'm sitting in the police car, and he's walking around the sidewalk, talking, and he's got a script and whatever. And we're about to do the rehearsal, and suddenly he just walks up to the window of the cop car, and he goes, "How you doing? I'm Bill. What's your name?" I said, "I'm Mike." He goes, "You on the job?" I go, "No, sir. I'm an actor." "Uh-huh. How about you, man? Are you on the job?" To the other actor, and he goes, "No, I'm an actor too, sir." "Uh-huh. What's the score of the Yankees game?" All right, guys, it's going to be good. It's going to be real good." And he walked away, and I thought, well, that's a Bill Murray introduction right there, I guess. So he was great. He was fun and easy to get along with, and easy to work with, and very encouraging. "That's good. That was good. That was good. That was funny," and we started playing with the scene early on. And just, that was it. The rest of the night, I just watched the master at work, and he and I sort of, it was written a certain way, and we kept a lot of that, but some of it, we started to improv a little bit. And then the end of that scene where he really makes me laugh, that was a last minute thing. We had been doing the scene pretty much that way all night after we had improv'd it a little bit. If you improv every take, the editor has nothing to use. So we started getting consistent towards the end of the scene, You know, he was saying to me, you know, were you guys going upstate? I said, yeah. And you got kids? And I said, we're working on it. And it wasn't until the last take on my close up where he said, yeah, well, trying's the fun part, right? And it just broke me, you know, and I just started laughing, and then I thought an actor in my head's going, finish the scene, get him in the car, get him in the car, you know, so they can use it. And it ended up being the best thing I've done.
That was my kind of favorite scene of the whole movie, and it's one of the reasons I
Oh,
watched.
thank you, man, thank you.
Because, like, in that moment, like, it felt really sweet because you sort of felt O'Callaghan sort of melt into sort of Felix's kind of hands at that point. You can imagine being like a New York cop. It must be tough. You must get some amount of abuse, you know, long days. And just in that sort of moment, he feels, I get the impression like O'Callaghan's like, feels humanized. Someone's talking to him kind of man to man. And it's just that when that smile kicks in, you're like, he feels like probably the first day on his job, like, oh yeah, you know, you could get away with murder at that point. Yeah. I just love that moment. And to hear that sort of was improvised makes it all the sweeter.
Well, it wasn't improvised. We improvised around the wonderful script that Sofia wrote, you know, and in fact, there were some cops on the scene, and we went to them and talked to them about like, hey, you know, what would you actually say as your, you know, because she said, I wrote what I thought a cop says. And so we talked to them, and she was like, thank you so much, guys. Thank you. You know, she's a sweet, sweet, sweet person. And we walked away, and she goes, I don't necessarily want you to say it that way. I said, okay. She goes, it is a movie, you know? So we kind of came up with how to say it. And it was interesting because she knew it was a process, and it was a collaborative process, you know, between the other artists. And so, and that's what I've noticed about the great directors is that it's not, I mean, not all of them. Some of them have a really distinct way that they want things said, and that's fine. But for her, she sort of, you know, she wanted it done a certain way, but she did want, you know, she wanted to let us sort of act around it. And I don't think you're ever going to stop Bill from trying to find a bit or a funny part of it. You know, as we were doing some of the earlier takes, he was doing something where he was touching my badge to prove that I'd been in air conditioning all day and not out on the beat and heat, you know, your badge is cold, you know, but the way he did it, I thought, oh my God, that's the scene in Stripes where he's, you know, here's proof his nose is cold, you know, that. And I thought he did it the same way. And inside I'm screaming in my head, like, this is the coolest thing. And outside I'm just trying to poker face it because I don't want him to think, oh, I want a pro, man. Well, who is this kid? You know? So it was
that kind of mythical status, isn't it? Where I think he's sort of famous of golfing here in Scotland, and it feels like everyone in Andrews, for example, has like, oh yeah, he came to my house party, or yeah, I'm on the golf thing. Like, it sounds like you got that moment where it's like he becomes that kind of larger than life, you know, kind of actor.
He just is that person. I've never met anybody that it was exactly who you think he's going to be when you get there. It almost like as if he feels like he has a responsibility to be Bill Murray. I mean, it's really that great. It's fun to watch, and Sofia too. I mean, you know, she has this quiet command of the set that I had experienced once or twice before, but the way she did it, and I have to say, watching the scene now, I realize how helpful she was to me because I am somebody who likes to react really with what's in front of me and not try to predetermine how I'm going to go about the scene and sort of really try to be in the moment. I feel like Bill's the same way. He's very present on film, you know, and that is always inspiring to me. But there was a part of me that was sort of so giddy inside to be doing it. I had a hard time not wanting to just laugh at everything he said. And I remember she came up to me and real early on, because he was getting me too fast. And she goes, listen, you're a dick. Be a dick. You know? and I was like, oh duh, that's right. You know, I gotta walk up to this car with a real sort of cop presence. That's why I was hired, you know. And then I can get into all the other stuff. So the arc of that scene is really a credit to her direction.
You touched on it as well. You've often played sort of like authority kind of figures, from cops to federal agents, amongst a lot of your other work. Did Sofia Coppola have a different way of approaching that kind of character than perhaps your typical sort of male director?
I don't think of things in that way necessarily. I don't know. It's no. Sorry, I don't have much for that one. Yeah, yeah,
I was just curious about that. And like
yeah, yeah. No,
you touched on it, like you obviously share the scene with Bill Murray, but there's also Rashida Jones there, and I think dare we say
yeah.
the third actor in the scene as well, this little red little Alfa Romeo. What was it like, sort of working with them as well?
She was great. You know, I like you said, I don't have much interaction with her, and I don't like to bother people when they're at work. So I sort of just left her alone. I said hi to her, and but she was very pleasant. And you know, like you said, she didn't have many lines in my scene, but you know, it's in those reaction shots you see her. It really adds to when I was watching the movie last night how much her reactions to Bill throughout the whole thing, because you know he's just this charmer guy, and it's sort of a almost it's a tough role that she's got. You know, it's I was trying to think through time. You know, I was watching Rain Man recently, and Dustin Hoffman, just his performance in it is just so solid. And then you forget how good Tom Cruise is in that, because you know here he is having to deal with this guy, and I sort of that kind of thing where you have one actor that just spinning the clock around, and you have the other actor that's kind of have to be the hour hand, sort of steadily goes along, and she was great. Yeah.
When I kind of re-reviewed the film a few weeks ago, one thing I thought was really good about the film, and I think it's really captured well in the scene, and almost how you describe it as well, is like it feels like the film captures what makes Bill Murray this kind of mythical individual, that his daughter sees what he's like and all his flaws potentially, but to sort of the public, he is this sort of larger than life kind of figure that he can talk his way out of any sort of trouble. It felt like, especially in that scene, like he could just talk his way out of anything. Did you get sort of that impression as well?
You always get an impression that he approaches a conversation with this sort of impish glow. You know, he's always, he might find a joke in here somewhere, but he also has this. I think that's the magical quality of Bill Murray, is that though you meet a lot of people that are always looking for the joke, they're looking for the bit, they're looking for the laugh and stuff, but he really listens. And I think that's what sets him apart from a lot of the others, is because you can actually see him listening and thinking and reacting in the moment. And I think that's, for me, what's so inspiring and educational to me, just watching him work, because he was very easy into the thing, and he would flub it and go back and he would try it again. But it was nothing sort of overdone. He was always just right there, present. And for me, that was just fun to watch in person.
What's it like for yourself? Like at the end of the night, you
Mhm.
finish shooting this, you go home and you think, I went toe to toe with Bill Murray, doing improv, doing comedy.
Yeah.
How do you kind of get to sleep at night after something like that?
What was cool about it is that we were in front of this great pizzeria on 27th between 10th and 11th here in the city under the High Line. The pizza was so good. I have to see if I can remember the name of the pizzeria, but they brought out two when it was was done, and Bill was going to go, and then I was going to do the scenes where I'm pushing the car for him, but he was like, he almost is like telling me what he was going to do now. Yeah, so I'm going to go, and you're going to do this, and and almost like I don't want to say father son, but like older actor, younger actor, like telling you this is how the rest of the night's going to go, buddy. And so we got and Sofia was so happy that the end of the scene ended that way, I think, and it was a good night, it was a successful night. And it was my first time shooting on film. Previously I'd only filmed everything on digital or whatever they use on television, and so there's only a certain amount of takes you can really do on that. It's expensive, so we did most of that stuff in 3-4 takes, which for me, that was a little new, except for like early work in like soap operas and stuff, where it was like you got like one take, and they were like, "That's good, let's go." So anyway, we each got a pizza, and I looked at Bill and I sort of just cheersed him with the pizza, and we started eating the pizza, and he was just complimenting me, and I'm like, no, that was good. And I didn't know what to say, so I'm just like, "It was awesome, it was awesome." And then he stopped talking, almost as if to like give me a chance to be like, I love you, or you're the man, or something like that. And I couldn't bring myself to say anything. I was just kind of nodding my head, going, and he looked at me and he goes, All right, Mike. It was good meeting you, man. Take care of yourself. He just left, and it was like here he was and gone tomorrow. It was really interesting and fun.
What was it like sort of pushing that red Romeo sort of off down the street? Was it quite a physical challenge, or was it quite a light car? I'm not much of a car driver myself, so like I'm thinking like, did they have to really put their back into it, or was it quite a little light push?
It's funny you asked because I think we only did 2 takes of that. And the very first take, Bill had just left the set. And the very first take, I'm pushing the car and the stunt driver hits the gas. And suddenly the car was not underneath me. And I had all my weight into this thing, because it's a heavy car. And I fell flat on my face, all my stuff, my badge, my gun, my everything. I was like a yard sale over the street. And I turn around and I look up, and there's Sofia and a producer and AD, and they're like, "Are you okay?" There's laughing, and I was sort of embarrassed, and I said, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." I just scuffed my knee a little bit, and I got up and I put all my stuff back together, and we did another take, and I walked off, and it worked. But no, it was a lesson in don't put all your weight ahead of your center of gravity there.
You get to take things home like your O'Callaghan badge or anything like that, or is it very much return to the kind of lockers, off you go, or do you kind of maybe get to put something in the back pocket?
Nah, it's just the memories to me are good enough. And someone said, "Oh, you didn't take any pictures?" I thought, "No, I'm not that guy. I can't do the whole, hey, can we get a picture?" It ended up though, there was paparazzi across the street, and there ended up being about 50 pictures online of the whole thing a few weeks later. But no, I didn't take anything from it, man. It's just, I'm just happy the scene remained in the movie, and it worked the way it did, because that was fun. It's funny you keep saying O'Callaghan, and I know I'm an American, but I have Irish ancestry, and I know how to say it. There's a G in the way they spell it, and I kind of feel bad because I started saying, when he started saying O'Callaghan, Bill's Irish too, so he was saying it right, and I kept going. And I thought for some reason, early on in the rehearsals or the shoot, I thought it'd be funny to correct him and say O'Callaghan. It's O'Callaghan, and I don't know that he was. I think he, in his mind, knew that was wrong, but because he's such a gracious guy, he just kind of went with it.
Yeah.
You notice in the film, he actually mispronounces O'Callaghan twice, but you can almost sense that he sort of knows that it's wrong, so he sort of rolls over it. I hope he's not angry with me, and I hope but maybe it fits for his character too, because he's not supposed to be the blue collar guy. He's supposed to be more of the upper echelon.
When did you sort of get to see the film for the first time, and what was your reaction?
Well, the first time I saw the scene was during the ADR session, and when I walked into the room. ADR sessions, when you get the sound on the set, sometimes the sound's not perfect, so they need a line or two in a booth, and then the sound designer sort of mixes it in. And I went in, and they showed me the whole scene front to back, and I was like, oh wow, it really works. It's funny, and and Sophia said, yeah, the friends and family that I've shown so far really enjoyed it. And I'm thinking, oh, which family? Like, who's seen it? But so that was fun, and the editor was super, super nice. She was just, I love the scene, and now you're the guy that did this scene with Bill Murray, and I thought, I'm just so grateful that you guys did this and had me involved, because we actors' lives are so unpredictable. Sometimes we're doing something, the next thing you don't see from us for years, so anytime I get a job, I'm just grateful. And when I get a chance to work with the greats like Sofia and Bill and Rashida, I mean, come on, how cool is that? And then I watched it when it came out on Apple TV on the 23rd. With COVID and everything, it went into a few theaters in and around the New York area, but it never worked into my schedule, so I couldn't go. And they had it, I think, the first night when it was at the New York Film Festival at a drive-in in Brooklyn.
The pictures of it looked stunning, sort of seeing all these cars kind of lined up for like half a mile, just like with this huge screen. It must have been quite an event.
The whole thing, yeah. I'm a big fan of stand-up comedy too, and I got a lot of friends that are doing stand-up, and the same thing with them. They're trying to do stand-up in the park. It's like, or outside or parking lot or whatever. And but yeah, I mean it speaks to the artists that are here and around the world, I guess, is that no matter what, you're not going to stop us doing from what we love.
I was really lucky enough to catch it in the cinema here in the UK before we went
Oh, great.
lockdown again. And it was one of those ones, it was quite surreal to watch an Apple TV. Well, I actually watched it as a double feature at the cinema with a Netflix film, The Trial of the Chicago Seven. It felt like the only people that were putting movies into the cinema were Netflix and Apple TV at the time, and they were selling out cinemas. But
Wow.
what kind of like for yourself to like, you touched on it, like being an actor, you can be seen in something, then someone can maybe vanish for a while. What's it like now for you to be sort of in something like an Apple TV product where it's going to be there permanently? People can watch it on their phones, computers, laptops. It's just there at the click of a button for the rest of the time. And does it shine a spotlight on you in a movie that can sometimes, with films like this, the windows they have in cinemas are small. It's in New York and Los Angeles for a couple of weeks, gets into sort of the, Oscar contention, and then something else kind of comes in. Now people can go word of mouth. Oh, I saw it on the rocks. Oh yeah, I'll catch it on Apple TV tomorrow or later this week. What's that kind of like for you as an actor to have that sort of exposure, I guess, in a film like this?
I don't know. It's exciting is probably the best word. It's exciting to sort of do something that people that'll be there. I don't have children. I have two nephews. It'd be cool for when they're old enough to watch movies like that to see their uncle and my family, my parents. It's good to show them that they sometimes worry that is he going to be able to do this? Well, I remember when I had a first few meetings with agents, because I didn't start until after I was 30. And I had an agent say, "How long you been doing this, Mike?" As if I've been failing for 15 years. And I said, "Nah, just a few months." So that I think that was surprising, and it's not often that somebody starts. I think, but then I look at stories like Rodney Dangerfield didn't make it till he was like 57. Harrison Ford started later. These are heroes of mine, and Ricky Gervais is another guy who started later in life with comedy. So there are stories out there, and I'm still a grunt. I'm still out there doing day player stuff here in New York, and working on getting any television show or a movie that's here. But I've been blessed with these types of movies.
When I saw the film in the cinema, it felt like watching it sort of during COVID added like an extra kind of wonderful layer to the film, where it was surreal to watch a busy and thriving New York, from the streets to the pubs and clubs and everything in between. What's it like for yourself? Because I can tell you're a proud New Yorker just from even your Twitter account, Mike Keller, New York City. What's it like for yourself kind of looking back at like the film in sort of the current reality with COVID, where a lot of New York's kind of sadly shut down still?
Yeah, I said I watched it again last night before we did this today, and I can't wait for us to come back and not have to deal with it. Just like seeing people sitting in restaurants and kissing each other and hugging and all that. You just miss all that, and just to see people walking around the streets without masks on. I do have to say about New Yorkers, man, it is 98% people are walking around with masks in the middle of the street with no one around them. People are still wearing masks, and it's I'm proud. You're right. I am a proud New Yorker because of stuff like that. The way that this city comes together in times of crisis has been extraordinary since the time I've been here.
Has it been a challenging year for yourself as a kind of performer and artist? Is that for people that kind of are listening to this, what can we do as sort of, viewers and kind of people that pay for the arts? What can we do to sort of support the creative arts and, talent like yourself during this sort of period of COVID shutdown?
Well, I think you said it right there. Pay for the arts. There's a lot of people that don't pay, and because of this internet, they are able to rip and steal and pirate stuff. I think, do the right thing and pay for the movies that you watch and the television shows and stuff. That's one thing. The other thing is just keep an open mind. I think we're theater. I love New York City because I'm a theater. I love the theater. I was talking to someone from Los Angeles recently, and they went, theater. So yeah, man, it's nothing like it. I run this theater group for Lyle Kessler, who is the playwright of a play called Orphans. You may have heard of it. They made a movie of it years ago with Albert Finney. Great movie. And so I met him years ago. He runs the Actor Studio Playwright Directors Unit, where I'm a director there. We became friends about 10 years ago, and we run this group. And it's just thrilling to get in there with like 30 other actors and just work on scenes and plays. And one actor that has been stopping by in that group is Chaz Palminteri, and he's become a great friend. And he actually directed me in this play by William Mastrostromone called The Wool Gatherer. And it was me and this actress, Christina Toth, and a two-hander about a truck driver and a candy store clerk that fall in love in her apartment one night. And it's just this beautiful play. And Chaz, he directed it. It was such fun.
We pose this question to everyone we get on the show. What's your opinion of their fellow New Yorkers as well, sort of A24, and what's it like to be in one of their films? And are there any sort of highlights of their filmography for you?
Yeah, I mean, come on, their catalog has just been pretty up. I mean, when I was first coming into the business, the Weinsteins were the people that you look to what are the Weinsteins making? What are they producing? What do they buy? What are they putting out there? And now I look at A24, and it's like, oh, these kind of are the people right now that are putting those types of movies out there, these cutting edge. The movie that I love that they made was by Bo Burnham, called Eighth Grade. I just fell in love with that movie. I've seen it so many times. He's with a friend of mine, Lorene Scafaria, who wrote and directed Hustlers. She and I grew up together, actually. I've known Lorene since I was about 15 years old, and her boyfriend's film is just great, and her films are great. I don't know if you saw her, The Meddler with Susan Sarandon. That's about her mom. It's such a good movie. And also, she has this Seeking a Friend at the End of the World.
Oh yeah, I've seen
with
that.
Steve Carell and Keira Knightley. Oh, I love that. The end of that film rips my heart out, man. Oh wow. I just love working with these types of. I'm just so lucky to work with writer directors like Sofia Coppola. I think that not these big films where there's a million writers and it's a big studio thing. It's cool to write to work with people that are auteurs.
Yeah, and we've had Bo Burnham on this show as well, so it's just that couple of degrees of separation. So
yeah, I saw that. Yeah, he's great, isn't he's so funny.
And kind of what's coming up in the future for yourself that you would maybe recommend people to keep an eye out for? I know things are difficult just now in terms of dates and commitments, but is there anything we should keep an eye out for in the future?
I'm working on, I don't know if I'll get it or not, but I have this opportunity at a pretty big physical role with a really famous, great director. I can't really talk about it. It's sort of hush hush, but I am doing a lot of push-ups and sit-ups to try and look good for these casting people, and the auditions in a couple of weeks, and that's the only thing I can think of. Other than that, no, it's been a really hard year. It's been really hard. There has not been a lot coming down the pike, and what is been scooped up. And I almost have not worked all year, unfortunately.
We'll cross the fingers that 2021 comes off, and for all those people that are checking out on the rocks, that they'll be on the phone. For people that were listening to this and wanted to keep up to date with any of sort of your news or kind of work, where's kind of the best social media or websites to check out for you, Mike?
I'm not very active on Twitter. When you mentioned it, I thought, oh crap, because I thought to myself, what have I done on Twitter? And it's been very minimal stuff. Just usually trying to prop up, the friends of mine that are in stuff that I want people to, the few followers that I have. I have an Instagram account, but probably my website's the best it's MikeKeller.tv. And I put, clips from stuff that I've been in up there and some news. And I do some private coaching. There's a way to get in touch with me there.
Well, it's fantastic. Thank you so much for talking with us, Mike. It's been a real pleasure to talk with the man behind one of my favorite scenes of the year. So it's been a pleasure.
The pleasure's mine, Lee. I'm so happy that people are really enjoying it, and thank you so much for the kind reception to the scene, man. Because every time I don't tire of hearing it. I'll tell you that.